Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. In this video, we will learn how to use the tables that are provided in your booklet. This will be about table 1, 2, and 3. These tables are the main source of our calculation guidance that we'll be using for solving the questions. Let's look at table 1. This table is about the Residual furuz. Again, these are the people who have a fixed share as prescribed in the Quran or Hadith with the condition in which that share is applicable. So this is not a comprehensive list of all relatives, rather only the Residual furuz with their fraction and the conditions in which it applies. The first column is the serial number, which is just a number to list down all the relatives. The second column is the heir. You can refer to your abbreviation table to see what these abbreviations stand for. H is for husband, W is for wife, D is for daughter, SD is for son's daughter, and SSD is for son's daughter. So this is the column that mentions the heirs, and so on it continues. The next column is the share. So this is the fraction that is prescribed to them in the actual number. So if it's 1 over 2 or 1 over 4, 1 over 8, 2 over 3, whatever that fraction is that is mentioned. And the next column is the same fraction converted into a share from 24. Remember the pizza again. To simplify the LCM step, people can use this column and use the fraction from 24 instead of the actual number, and avoiding the calculation of lowest common multiple that we will be using if we use the actual fractions. The next column is the condition. This is the situation or the specific circumstance in which that fraction applies for that particular heir. For example, the first condition for the husband is if children are not present. CH stands for children, and again refer to the definition of awlad and children. If that definition or condition is not met, then the husband gets 1/2 or 12 over 24. But in the next line, if the children are present or any of the awlad is present to qualify for children, then the share of the husband will be 1/4 or 6 over 24. The last column is the reference. These are the references that you can look up in the section of your booklet that says sources of knowledge. So reference 2 means this is the second reference that is mentioned in that list, and so on and so forth. Now let's just walk through all the relatives in this table to understand this better. All the relationships mentioned here are in reference to the dying person. So if it says husband, this would mean that a dying person is a woman and it is her husband. Similarly, if it says daughter, this is the dying person's daughter. So all relatives are in reference to the dying person. The first two heirs are the spouses, husband or wife. So if a woman dies and leaves behind a husband, then the husband's share would be 1/2 if children are not present. If children are present, the share would be 1/4 or 6 over 24. Similarly, for a wife who is left behind, if the dying person did not have any children, then her share will be 1/4. But if the dying person had children, then the share of the wife will be 1/8. Next are the daughters, the son daughter or son's daughter. For the daughter, if there are 2 or more daughters that are present at the time of death, then the share of the daughters will be 2/3, and it will be split equally among all these daughters. So if there are 4 daughters, they will share among this. If there are 7, they will share among this. If there are 2, they will share among this. So again, looking at the condition over here, it says if there are 2 or more in number and there is no son. Now if son is present, then what happens? Then they don't get a share from table 1 as Residual furuz. Rather, they will get a share in the residuary table in table 2. So they will still get a share, but the way we calculate it will be slightly different. So this condition is only met if there is no son of the dying person. The next line for the daughter is that if there's only one daughter and there is no son, then her share will be 1/2. Next relative is the son's daughter. So son's daughter gets 2/3 if the condition is there are 2 or more of son daughters, there is no son, there is no daughter, and there is no son. Only then they get this share. Otherwise the share will be different and we will ignore them in table 1. The next line is if they get half, or the son's daughter will get half if she's only one and there is no son, daughter, or son present. The last condition for the son daughter is if there is one daughter, there is no son, and there is no son, then the son's daughter will share among the 1/6 of the share. And this is in reference number 5 from a hadith. Then we move on to son's daughter. So as you can imagine that the next generation gets a share if the previous generation is not present. So a son's daughter will get a lot of share, same as the daughter, if there was no daughter present and there is no son present. And similarly, the son's daughter will get share in the same proportions as a daughter only if the daughter is already died and there is no son's daughter. So over here, the share will be 2/3 if there are 2 or more son's daughter present and there is absence of son, daughter, son's daughter, or son. Lots of conditions here, right? The next one will be son's daughter will get half if she's only one and all other relatives are not present that are mentioned here. And lastly, she would get 1/6, or they will all share 1/6 if there are more than one, only if there is one daughter or one son's daughter and the rest of the relatives are not present. Moving on further in table 1, then we get the share of parents. F is for father, and as a zibul furuz, there's only one condition. If the dying person leaves behind children, awlad, then father will get 1/6. Now if the dying person does not leave any children, then what? Then again, father does not get a share from table 1, rather his share is ready to be given to him in table 2, and this is how we will calculate it. For the mother, it's slightly complicated, and let's just walk through it. The first condition we look at is that in the case when children are present, or anyone from the awlad definition is present, or there is ikhwa present, and remember ikhwa was if someone has 2 or more siblings of any type or any gender. So if that category is met, then we use this condition. Or the dying person is a woman and leaves behind a husband and a father. So if any of these 3, children, ikhwa, or husband plus father are present, then the mother's share will be 1/6. Next line, if the dying person is a male and leaves behind a wife and a father, and the condition of 1/6 is not met, then the mother will get 1/4. But if both these conditions are not met, 1/6 or 1/4, then mother's share is 1/3. Next line is the father's father or paternal grandfather. Father's father will get 1/6 of a share if there is children present and there is no father. So again, in the presence of a father of a dying person, the grandfather would not get anything. But if father is not there, then grandfather is eligible for 1/6 if children are present. Then is father's mother, FM. She gets 1/6 if the mother is not present, and as per most of the schools of thoughts, the father is also absent. So both when there is no mother and there is no father of the deceased person at the time of the death, then paternal grandmother, which is father's mother, will get 1/6. Maternal grandmother gets 1/6 as well if the mom is not present. And if they both are present, maternal like father's mother and mother's mother, then they will share the 1/6 equally. Here I would like to point out that we do not see mother's father in this list. Mother's father is not among Zawil Furuz, rather is in Zawil Arham, the third tier. But mother's mother is part of the Zawil Furuz. And Allah knows best the hikmah behind it. The last three relationships are about siblings. And in the Zawil Furuz category, there is real sister. So if the real sisters are two or more, and the dying person does not have any children, father, father's father, or real brother, then the sisters will get 2/3. If the real sister is only one, and other conditions are met, which is there's no children, no father, no father's father, or no real brother, then her share will be 1/2. Similar rules apply for paternal sisters, but with an extra condition that there should not be any real sister. Because if the real sister is present, she would have gotten the share beforehand and would have taken the share, and paternal sister would not get the share in this proportion. But the last line says, if there is one real sister and you have absence of children, father, father's father, real brother, and paternal brother, then paternal sister can also get 1/6. The last relatives mentioned on this table are MT, and if you recall, MT stands for maternal siblings, and these were the ones where the share is equally divided into male and females. So it does not matter if it's a male or a female, as long as they're maternal siblings, which is ikhyafi, then if they are two or more, they get 1/3 if children, father, and father's father are not present. If there are only one, then the same conditions have to be met and the share will be 1/6. The brothers or the sisters, both gender, get equal share in this category. If you find this very confusing, don't worry about it at all. As we do the examples and solve the cases, this will become so easy to go through and become a natural skill that you will develop. In this video, my point is just to make sure we walk through every box on the table so that we can understand it when we are reading it by ourselves. Next, we move on to Table 2. Table 2 includes the second tier, which is the asba and the residuary category, with the last two columns on this table, column number 25 and 26, referring to the tier 3, which is Zawil Arham, DI, and the state or Baitul Mal. The asba relatives, the residuary, are those who do not have a fixed prescribed share. They do have a share in the certain conditions, but the share is not fixed. It varies based on how other relatives are present or not. So we see the table moves from left to right. The first row on the table is a serial number, and the second row is hairs. So this again moves from left to right. The first one on this list is S, which is son. The next one is son, son, and then son, son, son. Then father, father's father, and then F3 and F4 refers to father's father's father, or father's father's father, father, and so on and so forth. RB is real brother, RS is real sister, then PB is paternal brother, and PS is paternal sister. After assigning shares from table 1 to the relatives that have a fixed proportion under the certain condition, if that condition is met and we have assigned them the share, whatever is left behind is going to be given to the first residuary that appears in this table. We move in this table from left to right. So if someone has a son, the son will get the rest of the shares, and son, 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 sons, father, and so on and so forth will not get anything else. The first one that appears, that is applicable in our case, gets all the remaining share. Among this list, there are 5 relative categories in which their share is also divided into the female counterparts. For example, column number 14, 15, 16, 19, and 21. In these scenarios, if the male, which is son, 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 or anyone else is present, they will also provide the share to the females. So if son is present, then we know that from table 1 the daughters did not get any share because their condition was not met in table 1. So they get their share here now, which is assigned to the son and also given to the daughters in 2:1. Similarly, it goes for SS, SD, SSS, and SSD, RB, RS, PB, and PS. The share of the male to female here is 2:1, as we had talked about in previous video. Other than that, column number 23 refers to residuary with serial numbers 27 to 144. For this, you have to refer to table number 3. This category is detailed with an asterisk F, which means that this category of asba, the residuary, refers to additional male relatives that are related through the chain of males. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, "Alhiqul fara'ida bi ahliha, fama baqiya fahuwa li awwali rajulin zakarin," meaning that assign the shares or give the shares to the due relatives, and whatever is left behind, give it to the closest male relative. So after we have gone through this extensive list of relatives in table 1 and table 2, and we did not find any relative in table 2 that we could have assigned this share to, we will look for additional extended male relatives to give this share. And if that is not present, then we move on to column 24, which is problem of rad, the problem of excess, where you have more wealth to be distributed and none of the asba are present. This, you remember, is the arrow that goes back to Zivul Furuz and redistributes the wealth among that fixed ratio people in the proportion that they had already received in. We will learn this as a special case. We then move on to Zivul Arham, or the state property, if none of these relatives are present. Zivul Arham is very rare. In all these years, I have never found a case in which no one had any relatives at all and we had to talk about Zivul Arham. So we would not cover that in this course. But this includes people from the maternal side, which would be maternal uncles, your grandchildren from your daughter's side, and so on and so forth. And it's a very extensive list of relatives. Now we move on to table 3. Table 3 only has one specific purpose. If you reach column number 23 during your calculations in table 1 and table 2, and now you are looking for the extended male relatives, this table will help you identify that among all the male relatives that are connected to the dying person through the chain of males, which male relative category is the closest. Because what we would do is we would identify the closest in relationship and then assign all the remaining residuary property to that category. So in this table, the deceased person, male or female, is in the center. If you move up from the deceased person, these are the ancestors, such as father, then father's father, and so on and so forth. If you move to the left, you will move to the real brothers. So RB is the real brother of the deceased person, and now going down, 27 would be the son of the real brother, and 29 would be the son of real brother's son, and 31 would be the next generation, and so on. So 45 here is father's father's real brother's son. Similarly, on the right side, we have the paternal brothers. As you notice in this table, there is no mention of sisters because this extended asba is only looking for male relatives. Also, we don't see any mention of maternal siblings because that relationship is connected through the mother and it breaks the chain of males. Let's do a quick exercise to see how we use this table. So if a dying person passed away and we have gone through the table 1 and in table 2, eventually we still have property to distribute and we have reached the column that says extended asba. Now we come to table 3 and we figure out that the dying person has these relatives that are available. They have father's real brother's son's son, father's father's paternal brother, and paternal brothers, son, son. We use this table to find out who is the closest, and that category will get the remaining wealth. The smaller the number, the closer the relative. So let's start with number 1. Fathers, real brothers, sons, son. Here we go to father, we move up, we go to real brother, we move left, and then we move to son, and then son, son, which will be 37. The next relative is father's father's paternal brother. So we move up from the deceased to father, and then father's father to the paternal brother, which is 44, and that will be the number. And the last one is paternal brother's son, son. We move to the right to the paternal brother, then 28, and then 30. So in this way, we have identified that the closest relative would be the third category, which is paternal brother's son, son, as that number is the smallest of all the numbers that we have identified. This is how we will use all three tables in our course. Table 1 is about Zawul Furuz, Table 2 is about residuary, and Table 3 is about finding the extended residuary. It may seem confusing or too much information in one video, but as we do the cases and we start using the tables, you will see how easy it is, and inshallah with the dua to Allah, it will become easier for you. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahlan. O Allah, there is no ease except for what you make easy, and make this knowledge and understanding easy for us and guide us in the right path. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. We are now ready to jump into the actual cases and start becoming the experts that we are all hoping to be.